Thank you, councillors. Please could you stand reading the council portion.
Almighty God, as members of the Rangitikei District Council, we give thanks for all the good things of our district and the advantages we enjoy. We pray that you will give us wisdom and guidance as we conduct the affairs of this meeting. We pray for all the communities in the district we represent. Help us to be fair and honest in our discussions and help us to work together in unity for the welfare of your people.
Thank you. Welcome to those online to today's ordinary council meeting of 30th of July. Just some introductions. Trina, would you like to introduce Petra so that we understand who's recording minutes and so on in the role?
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd like to welcome Petra Fleming to the room. She has taken on the role of governance advisor for us as council, which has enabled Kezia to move on to a new position still within council. So Petra will become your familiar figure in this room, taking all of your minutes and responding to a lot of your inquiries as well. So really excited to have Petra on board, and thank you to Kezia today for showing her the ropes.
Thank you. It's very useful to have them quietly giving me the nod when I'm out of order or things that are not done through Katrina. So thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you for the introduction. And Petra, welcome. Welcome to the council chambers officially. In terms of apologies, I've had no apologies that everybody is present. So we've got that bypass this. We do have a public forum and Kyle has just walked into the room. Kyle Baird. Kyle, in terms of public forum, if you'd like to come forward to this side of the table, I'll just explain the rules of public forum for you. You have 10 minutes to tell us what you want to tell us. But that includes question time. So how you use that time is up to you. If you don't want any questions from councillors, that's fine. So Kyle, the time is yours.
Okay. Well, thanks for making the time for me. I've got a bit of a planning situation, holding back my business in the northern Rangitikei. My name's Kyle Baird. I own Baird Built, a small residential building company based in the Kowdale Valley. We specialise in bespoke, high-quality modular homes, selected new builds and character renovations. We're currently proceeding with a resource consent application to build a large shed at our property, 112 Aoputa Road. And I know the decision on that application sits with officers, not with you. That's not what I'm here to ask for today. But what I want to raise with you is something broader, a gap that I think exists in the plan's framework itself. Here's the key planning challenge. The shed in itself isn't really the issue. A shed like this could be established in the general rural zone if it were tied to any permitted primary production activity. The problem is that we intend to use it for construction, not primary production, which makes it industrial activity requiring discretionary consent. The plan is to build on our site before transporting completed homes to their final locations. This isn't a high volume factory. We're aiming for around 4 homes a year, individually designed high craftsmanship projects working undercover inside a permanent shed would provide a controlled environment to improve quality, cut weather delays and material waste, and give clients more certainty on cost and timeframes. And this isn't just about our project. We've recently talked with a neighbouring farming family running roughly 1,000 hectares who've looked at subdividing off around 10 small sections with access rights across the rest of the farm for people wanting to live rurally while the farm keeps operating around them. The goal isn't to step away from farming, it's to add value and bring in cash flow without losing productivity. That kind of flexible subdivision runs into the same wall we have. The plan appears to treat anything not tied directly to primary production as something to minimise, rather than asking whether it actually causes harm. So the real question is, what additional impact does our proposed use to actually create for the community over and above what's already expected in a rural environment? The district plan accepts that rural activities, generally noise, traffic, machinery, buildings and odour, because primary production is central to the zone's purpose. I'm not arguing against that. nor against the businesses operating around us. I just expect to live within the same limits. I am asking that our proposal be judged cost effectively on its outcomes, impacts and risks, not simply on the fact that it isn't primary production. There are 2 pack houses near us with comparable impacts, each serviced by roughly 1 B train truck a day for about 2 to 4 months a year each. That's accepted. By comparison, we're looking at around 4 completed homes leaving the property a year, plus roughly 8 material deliveries, infrequent activity and manageable with proper route and traffic planning. Large oversized diggers, similar to the size of transporting a home, are transported along the same road on rural contracting jobs. And let's not forget stock, fertiliser and hay trucks. All vehicles of a similar size to what we'd need. So traffic of this scale isn't unprecedented here. Day to day, the work itself happens inside the shed, where I would still be responsible for maintaining a compliant, safe working environment. Which brings me to location. When I moved here from Auckland, I expected that a district with more space and a smaller population would make it possible to establish a practical, space-dependent business at a cost that simply isn't realistic on industrial land in a major city. What I'm struggling with now is where in this district is a business like ours actually meant to go. Our site may be seen as unsuitable because it's general rural and some distance from State Highway 1, but I'm not aware of affordable industrial land nearby that could take construction, lifting, storage, and transport of complete homes, and doing this in town brings its own impacts. Trucks, lifting gear, large loads near residential streets and schools. On our property, none of that touches the public. I'm not saying our site is automatically right. I am asking that the trade-offs be weighed practically. This business is already part of what keeps this rural community viable, supports a family of 6 living here, 4 kids on the local school bus route, which actually had stopped running before we arrived. Small example, but it shows what retaining working families in rural areas does for the services everyone relies on. Each home we build for this district will also add to the capital value and productive use of the property it sits on, and over time to the district's rating base. That value isn't just wages and materials, it's a lasting asset left behind for the district. I understand officers have to apply the district plan and national policy as they stand. Again, I'm not asking you to predetermine my consent outcome, although that would be nice. I'm asking whether the current framework is producing a sensible, proportionate result. And if a shed like ours would have been fine under primary production, what specific extra harm comes from our proposed use? If any defined harm is limited and manageable, there should be a realistic path forward. All this is consistent with the requirement of the Local Government Systems Improvement Act, Amendment Bill, Section 10C, currently before Parliament. I believe the plan should enable activities which support and are consistent with primary production, not simply limit or prevent activities which aren't agriculture, horticulture, or forestry. If a business like ours can't operate from an appropriate rural site and there's no practical industrial alternative nearby, where does the district expect it to go? My goal is a sustainable local business, employment, training, family, value added across the district. I hope you see this as a gap in the framework worth revision and that it's something you'll keep in mind as the long-term plan is reviewed. Next mate.
Thank you, Carl. Are you prepared to answer questions? Deputy Mayor Dave Wilson.
Thanks, Noel. So quick question, have you or do you actively have an application in with council for the necessary resource consent or consenting process to achieve what you want to do on your premises? Do you actually have a consent in place at the moment?
It's not currently lodged yet. We've spoken with the town planners and with my planners, and we're just starting to lodge it now.
So it hasn't actually been lodged.
Hasn't actually been lodged yet, no.
Okay, supplementary to that. So your assumption is that you won't be able to do what you want to do. Is that correct?
I've been told by the council planners that it's unlikely to get consent.
Yeah.
And my personal planners that we're paying have basically told me it's possible, but it's going to be a very expensive process. In the order of $100,000.
Fair questions. Kyle, are you aware of the limitations that the government has placed on zoning and planning changes at the moment?
No.
So, council isn't in the position, councils aren't in position to be able to provide you with answers today, because we would need advice as to what processes. But, you know, are you asking us to investigate?
I think, well, like I say, my understanding is that, as councillors, you have the, some sort of, you can make an impact on what is and isn't possible in the district plan. And I think that
Sorry, our questions,
You can
Do
ask
you-
a question.
of you?
It's not appropriate to ask questions of staff at this process.
No, I'm not
But you
asking,
can-
can I ask a question of you?
Yeah, try.
Do you agree with that councils can, or your words, and basically influence the plan, or influence changes to the plan? Because I wasn't aware I had that ability.
You do have the option of influencing it over time, yes.
At a review period,
At
which
review-
happens every 6
At
years.
review periods.
Right.
I'll extend the time because it was the question directed at Kyle. Any further questions directed at Kyle? Kyle, how many people are you employing currently?
currently we've got 4,
And
so
so,
myself.
so while you haven't got permission to work on your preferred site at the moment, how's that work continuing?
At the moment, we're not doing work, that sort of work.
So Wilson, I have one further question. Your worship, Kyle, are you intending to submit an application for resource consent for the activity that you have indicated?
Yes.
You are, okay, thank you.
And you've obviously had several meetings with staff. With planning staff. Thank you. Any further questions? Otherwise, I have to call it time according to rules. No, Kyle, thank you very much for your inquiry. Councillors will have the officers discussion with staff over what can and can't be done.
Cool. Thanks, guys.
In terms of item number 4, the conflict of interest, if anybody wishes to declare any conflicts of interest, those items now, having the ability to do so later if it arises. No, thank you. Confirmation of the order of business. It is as disclosed in the order papers. Move on, please. Confirmation minutes. Looking for alterations and corrections. For the minutes of 11th June and the 25th of June, looking for alterations and corrections. Starting pages 5, 6, 7 and 8, 9 and 10, 11 and 12, 13, and moving on to the 25th of June, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I have one correction in terms of page 18. RDC 142, 143 seems to me to be an absolute duplication, repetition. So I'd look to amend the minutes by removing of 143. 19, 20. 21, 22. Any further? Otherwise, I'll move that the minutes be altered with the deletion of 143. page 14, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Buckendale seconding.
Just confirming, your worship, you're wanting to move them as a block.
Yes, please. Moving both sets of minutes as a block. Those in favour? Those against? Motion's carried. Thank you very much. Moving to item number 7, the follow-up action report, move to the Chief Executive, who will push on to.
Thank you, your worship. So there's one follow-up action there around the review of the MOU, the Bills Trust. So we've scheduled to do that alongside our long-term plan, and we'll do that alongside the Taihape Trust as well. So that will happen slightly later this year.
I understand the acronyms, but for the people online or people reading those reports, even I had to think, what's BCDT?
Yeah, noted, updating right now.
Thank you very much. Would somebody like to receive that report, please? Councillor Sharlin moving. Thank you, Councillor Fee seconding. Those in favour? Sorry, you're shaking your head. Yeah. You all right?
Yeah.
Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to the Mayor's report. I'm going to take it as read, but I want to give first of all, a thanks to the councillors that attended the zone meetings and provided reports as required, and also to the Transport Committee. Thank you very much. Would you like to speak to your reports, please? Is there anybody that wishes to speak to their individual reports? Councillor Dalgety.
Councillor Beard.
Councillor Beard, sorry. Councillor Beard, go for it.
I'd just like to address an omission on my part, and I would like to address an omission on my part, and that is that I failed to say thank you for the opportunity to attend, because it was wonderful. But other than that, I think, yeah, all of our reports stand.
Thank you. Councillor Dalgety.
Yeah, bring to the table again my thanks for the ability to attend. I do find the conversations outside the conference, particularly at this time, trying to understand what our whole region is thinking, the direction we might be going together collaboratively, and where different councils are sitting was particularly useful, and certainly open to hearing any of those thoughts questioned or discussed further if anyone would like to.
That's that. Right.
Yes, I also would like to thank the council for sending us to that meeting, and we've got to appreciate too that we were out of the 15 councils that were there, we were the second to most represented people there, which, and talking to others, some of them don't get the opportunity to go to those zone meetings as councillors. So I think we really do have to appreciate the advantages we have through this council. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Passenger Transport Committee, I sent out an email on 19th of June, putting out a few salient points. One thing that one of the councillors brought up was the appearance of half-empty buses, which is a terrible optic. But considering capital costs and parking, if you try and have a larger fleet, the figures really just get out of control. But it is not a good thing for optics. It was discussed. Otherwise, there's no new funding for any transport services. So, and with the regional councils being reformed, there wasn't a particularly productive time. So, unfortunately, but it's interesting to have communication with the other councils that turn up at this meeting. If you have any questions, you can ask or talk to me some other time. The whole agenda's attached, which is the report. Thank you.
Thank you. Take any questions around my meetings or my report? You can continue to think about that one, but I'll move that my mayor's report and associated reports appendix be received. Looking for a second to that. Councillor Pikitara Hero seconding. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. We then move on to the remits. So recommendation 2, that council does or does not support remit 1, priorities for the Dog Control Act reform 2026. Would somebody like to move? I'll move that we do support. Councillors, these were all discussed. We spent quite a bit of time in workshops discussing these. I am looking for input. Look, I'll move that. Councillor Wilson seconding. I don't think I need to spend time on this. I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Remit recommendation 3, that Rangitikei District Council does or does not support remit 2, the improved regulation of vape retailers for 2026 LGNZ AGM. Would somebody like to move? Councillor Dalgety first. You're moving?
Yes.
That we do support?
Yes.
Looking for a second to that. Councillor Baird seconding. Do you wish to speak to it? Any other speakers? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 4, that Rangitikei District Council does or does not support remit 3, the financial support for government reform implementation costs 2026 LGNZ AGM. Councillor Wilson, you wishing to move in support?
Absolutely in support.
Looking for second. Councillor Hero seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, I think this is, Worship, this is a really, really important remit because the implication costs of what government is driving is going to have a huge impact on not only our council, but on councils across the board. And we need to strongly support this one. And I hope through LGN conference that you're able to voice that strongly, Your Worship.
It's going to be a different format because this is literally tomorrow and it will be online, which would be interesting to see how that influences the discussion level with regard to these remits. Are you happy if I put it to the vote?
Yes.
Put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Recommendation 5, the council does or does not support remit 4, the removal of representation review requirements during the simplifying local government reform 2026. Chief Executive, do you wish to make any comment around this one?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think this one would be extremely helpful if the government actually listened to us. That doing a representation review in this time of uncertainty is going to just add a huge amount of resource in terms of cost and staff time, with the potential to have to redo it all within a couple of years. So it certainly doesn't make sense. And I know we have had multiple discussions through LGNZ, but also in all our channels. So I would hope that if you pass this to support it, the government would actually listen.
Looking for a mover. Councillor Wilson moving, looking for a seconder. Councillor Buckendale seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
Very quickly to note that it was a strong conversation held at the zone meetings that Councillor Baird and Dalgety referenced earlier. Strong reference that our zone meeting partners also agree that this is a costly exercise to be doing at this time in simplifying local government conversations, and the strong messages that we should support this.
Thank you. Recommendation 6 that Rangituki District Council does or does.
Vote on that one.
Sorry, yes, I did. Those in favour? Those against? Now I have.
Oh.
Carried, thank you very much. Recommendation 6, the Rangituki District Council does or does not support remit 5, the devolution of place naming authority to territorial authorities for 2026 AGM. Somebody happy to move? Councillor Gargetti,
Yes, happy to move in favour.
you're moving in favour,
Yes.
looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Hero seconding, this is in favour of the devolution of place naming to territorial authorities. You wish to speak to that? At the workshop, there were some contrary views to this, and so I need to test this
I
out.
wasn't actually at the workshops, so. I just think there should be a simple system for naming our streets, etc.
Yeah. So it's actually the next recommendation, wasn't it? Yeah. No, sorry, I was thinking actually to the recommendation for the following remit. So, but this was on private workshop. Any further speakers to it? Otherwise, put it to vote. Councillor Beard.
I'd like to speak against this motion. I believe that there is adequate opportunity for local input into place naming currently, the current regime, and a broader national view is important.
Any further speakers? I'll speak to this. I'm in favour of this, and I've probably made it a little bit more complex than it's needed. We have had place naming that our district wanted, that the minister effectively overrode. And that's the use of the macrons in terms of the Rangituki. So I'll speak in favour. Any other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
I'm in favour also, Your Worship. Not so much for the reference that you've just related to, although correctly so, I might add. We are unique. We need to have some sort of place where we can recognise ourselves in our spaces, and we should be able to have the ability to do that and reflect that amongst our wider communities. And I think it should be within our gambit to be able to allow some sort of level of control over that. So I am in favour.
Councillor Rakawa.
Mandy, through you, I am also in support of this remit. I believe that our community, along with what Councillor Wilson has just said, and iwi generally have a better knowledge of local history and our identity in our rohe. So that is why I am in support of this remit.
Okay, that's a right of reply. Councillor
Have given a little bit more thought. I think this is where local voice and our connection to place is of huge value when making some of these decisions. We're on the spot here, and we're able to use our voice in this situation.
Thank you. I now must put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 7, that Rangituki District Council does or does not support remits 6, the enhanced role for government in supporting subnational diplomacy 2026 AGM. This is the one, sorry, that was quite a discussion at council workshop.
A question?
Certainly take a question.
So, my interpretation of this is effectively when councils want to go internationally and pitch. Is that correct? Is that what is that?
Yes, driven by this was driven by the metro councils that saw
Right.
themselves active in this space.
As we see, our pumps north colleagues do it.
Would somebody like to move? Either in support or not in support?
I'm going to move in support, but I'll speak to it.
Yeah.
We get a seconder. See how it plays
Well,
out.
let's see if we've got a seconder, councillor. I'll need a seconder first. Councillor Akawa, are you seconding? Yes, so now you can speak to it.
Okay, this was an interesting conversation that was had around the workshop that we held a week or so ago, where we discussed a number of these recommendations in some detail, and it was really helpful to get our understanding of it. The reason that I've moved that I support it because it does support some of our neighbouring councils to enable what they want to do, but I'm not really 100% sure that it adds any value to us as a council. But to some of our partnering councils, they have seen a need to have this as a remit through to LGNZ annual general meeting. My support for it is probably weak in that respect, but I do think as a supporting neighbouring council, perhaps we should show our support to something that maybe does not necessarily affect us directly, but there is other reasons that other councils may want to support this. So it's a bet each way, if you like.
I'll invite other speakers. Other speakers for or against? Councillor Wong.
I'll speak against it because I understand what Councillor Wilson has said, but this doesn't seem to be a priority, or it's not a priority for me, but I just don't feel the need to support it on balance of what Councillor Wilson has said. I'm on just slightly on the other side of the fence.
Councillor Okawa.
I am in support of it. I seconded it, but again, like Councillor Wilson said, shows our local collaboration with our partner or with our neighbouring councils. Kia ora.
I'm in support of it, of this remit. The reason I would be in support of it is, given that we don't know what's happening in the future, we ourselves could end up being part of a potential metro region. So that would be why I would be in support of it.
We've had 3 speakers in favour, 1 speaker against. Are there any other speakers against? Go back to right of reply.
No right of reply, Your Worship.
Must put it to the vote. Those in favour of the motion? Those against? Motion is carried. Thank you. Recommendation 8, that Rangitukia District Council does or does not support remit 7, the bulk funding of transport authorities for the 2026 LGNZ AGM. Looking for someone. Councillor Dalgety, are you prepared to?
Yes.
In favour of?
Yeah.
Looking for a seconder to that. Thank you, Councillor Field, seconding. You wish to speak to it?
We're facing considerable challenges around the funding of roading in our district, and I believe this could be a way of assisting.
I'll speak in favour. I agree with you. And in the past, the district has had a greater say in what regional activities happen within our region. Looking for any other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
I was actually going to speak against this one, but somewhat selfishly, in my thinking would have been my reasons to that. But having heard particularly what councillor Fee said, and yourself, I think it is important that we probably do support this one, based on similar comments to what councillor Pikiti Hira just mentioned about the future of where we may look. It may be prudent to be supporting an approach like this, so I'd give it support.
Councillor, when you say rather somewhat selfishly, are you declaring some conflict in that?
No, not at all. I was selfishly thinking that we would get more money as a district if we tried to row our own boat here. That was my reference to somewhat selfishly, certainly not that I'm involved in any road transport matters.
Thank you. Just wanting to clarify.
Certainly.
Put to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 9, that Rangitikei District Council does or does not support remit 8, improving the LTP audit requirements for 2026 LGNZ AGM. Essentially looking for probably a reduction in the audit costs. Councillor Dalgety,
Yes,
Chair of Funds.
support, thank you.
Councillor Hero,
Second.
seconding. You wish to speak further to it?
So our audit costs for the size of our council is significant, and the system could be streamlined and more cost effective.
Any other speakers? Councillor Hero,
Audible for what councillor Dalgety has just said.
you want right to reply? In favour of your position, regardless of political vote. Sorry, Councillor Okawa.
Kia ora, I was also strongly in support of this remit.
Right reply. Put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 10. That Rangitikei District Council does or does not support remit 9, a fairer approach to uneconomic transport infrastructure funding for the 2026 LGNZ AGM. Looking for a mover to that. I'll move it. I'm the chair, looking for a second. Councillor Wong seconding. What is happening within transport is that there are a number of instances around the country where council-owned roads, and probably more importantly bridges, replacing them against the income that received from rates is purely uneconomic. And there needs to be either a pathway around that or different provisions that can be used. There's some review. Any other speakers? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. New recommendation here in terms of the council priorities for this work to be done. In terms, so for those online, these are all remits that Local Government New Zealand, if passed, need to act on. In terms of the number of remits, what Local Government New Zealand is now going to be asking me as the voting person to put the priority against them. So what I'd like to move in order of priority is...
Would you like a formal recommendation?
Yes, please. I would recommend that the priority ranking for these is, first of all, transport, remit regarding transport. Second one being the reform process. The third one being the LTP. The fourth one being the bulk transport. Next one being the representation review. The dog one, place naming, vaping, and finally recommendation 7, which would be the enhanced role for government supporting the National Diplomacy 2026. As the order of priority, these for those online have been discussed at length for the council workshop. We can formalise that later. I'd like to move that as a recommendation, as a priority ranking. Councillor Wilson, you second it? And for those online, as I said, we have spent some time looking at the relative priorities of these. And that's where we tended to sit. Any other speakers?
Just for me, Your Worship, I may just to reaffirm your earlier comments that it supports the work that was done at the workshop around where there was quite some detailed discussion about impacts of these remits and where councillors felt that they fitted within the ranking system that you've indicated. So absolutely supporting what you've said.
No further speakers, I'll put that to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. And just for an explanation online in terms of the voting process, that when these remits are put up, there are movers and seconders, as we've been through here. Then there is a series of arguments. There is always the potential for me to have heard as the voting representative a number of arguments that we may not have considered in our discussions at the workshop. Whereas I can't recall ever a time where I have overturned council's thoughts. And probably if it got to that stage, I would abstain if I thought there was new information that we hadn't shared. But there is a warning, there is a process around this. Next recommendation is in light of the statement of intent around the defence hubs.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So this has come in as a late recommendation. The statement was given to us to circulate for feedback, but as officers, we've recommended that you consider delegating His Worship the Mayor to sign the final version. That will save it having to come back to you to do so.
Because it's the delegation to me, I'd rather not be the mover, obviously. So looking for somebody, Councillor Wilson to move, Councillor Charlin seconding. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak to the motion?
I think this is an absolute requirement that we should have. I'm a little bit surprised that it doesn't exist again. Already, I thought something like this already did exist, but but then I thought about it, it may be referred to something up in Taihape somewhere. But I thought this already existed, but
it has existed, but this is in effect that signed the 2026 statement of intent.
okay. So it's just a refresh of that original document.
Correct.
Okay. Right. And in that case, happy to support you and happy to support the Worship the Mayor signing it.
Are there any questions around this? I can see or wanting to speak to her. Speaking to her, I go Councillor Charlin, Dalgety and Wong. Councillor Charlin.
Just one question, Your Worship. I noticed that Ruapehu's in here, but Wanganui not.
No, Wanganui is not. The reason that these councils are in there is because they either have defence force capability on their land or closely associated with it. So you have the bases at Linton, Ohakia and Wairau. And because of our very close association with Ohakia and defence capability and housing, we were included in that.
Okay.
So that's the reason. Question, was it? Councillor Dalgety?
Well, just an observation, actually. I hear on the radio yesterday that Blenheim is looking to approach the Regional Development Fund as being a central hub for defence down there. And I just thought, you know, if there's opportunities there, we should be flying our flag as well.
I'll answer that one. Yes, we do fly our flag, absolutely, in this space. For instance, the amount of housing that has been built in Bulls lobbied for this, and the use of Defence Force land there. What they do is within those bases, they run past their priorities for their funding applications with government and
We're very much included in those types of discussions. But yes, we do lobby. Councillor Wong, question was it?
This is a question perhaps more of our iwi representatives or the Maori councillors.
Yeah.
Was there any particular iwi consultation about this? As a similar, but a similar question was asked of the Taiba community to Waiouru, and there was some negative feedback from the iwi representatives there that they were not included in the discussions, even though it was only initial discussion. So I don't want to repeat that process.
Councillor Hero, do you wish to comment?
What I would say is that at the moment, of course, because the Northern Iwi within the Mokai Pātirohi are going through their Waitangi claims, definitely anything to do with that, definitely anything to do with that military base there is all under that, is all, it's all included within that. And from an individual iwi perspective, if that has come from Ngāti Tamakōpere, I can't comment. I wouldn't comment on that. But in regards to this, in my head, that this type of arrangement is between military itself and councils, not necessarily. It's not a relationship between military and iwi. There would be a different mechanism in my head, because if we were going to ask that about what's happening up the northern end of the Rangitihe district, you'd have to be asking that exact same question to iwi that sit within Palmerston North boundaries, Manawatu boundaries, and also to the Pihu boundaries. That's what I'm thinking now, and I don't know the answer as to whether or not that's happened, but I would say that it's...
You are correct that it is happening, and there have been commercial discussions between Ngāti Rangi, for instance, and the housing development in Waiuru. Any further questions, other questions or speakers? Speaker?
I just want to speak in favour of this because from the northern Rangitikei perspective, being a close neighbour of Waiuru and the interaction between personnel and their families and our community is also significant.
Any further speakers? Otherwise, I put your vote. Councillor Rakawa, thank you.
Yes, in regards to Councillor Wong's question, I know that there is a relationship between iwi and Defence Force and Hakia. However, I can't speak for iwi. I agree with Councillor Hirua. That's at a different conversation. Kia ora.
Thank you. Let's go back to the mover, right of reply. Councillor Wilson.
Not required, Your Worship, no.
It's a vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Council, Chief Executive Staff, in the Mayor's report, are there any further recommendations that are needed? Thank you. I've then moved to item number 9, the Chief Executive's report. Pass to Chief Executive.
Thank you, Your Worship. We'll just go through each section like we normally do, and then I'll ask for a couple of staff to assist in answering some of the questions. So first of all, just the events held across the district, reminding you that these are the ones we received the paperwork for, so that's why some may not appear here that you might be aware of. The second one is just outline section 3, staff movements in April, just advising the staff that have joined us and exited us. And then there's also our annual exit interview summary, which we provide to council and also to risk and assurance, so that it's covered in both areas, so that if there's any questions from risk and assurance, we can cover in there as well.
One question from me in terms of trends, 4.4. There's a comment there saying most reported highlights of the variety of work involved at RDC and the relationships with their team. Are you concerned about that?
No, I think it's a positive.
That's really positive.
Yes, it's reading it the other way.
Yeah, I just wanted
Yeah.
the clarification for those who might read this.
Yeah.
Councillor Dalgetty, question?
Also around the staff tune. So I'm just interested, do you think that the number of exits there been comparatively less than the last few previous years? Do you think that is because people have appreciated working in this council, or do you think it's more people are concerned about with unemployment climbing and jobs elsewhere? You've got to hang on to what you've got.
I might just, I have a few, but I think I'll ask Leanne, who's delved into most of this information, to provide a bit more.
So through the chair, there'll be a mix to a degree for sure, but when we look at all our survey results, we're getting really positive results, and I think there is a level of satisfaction working with us as opposed to being scared to leave.
Thank you.
And Manawatu, particularly Palmerston North, still has a high employment level available, so I genuinely believe it is the culture that has been implemented here.
Right, thanks. Great to see.
Hopefully that was what you were thinking.
Councillor Hero?
Kia ora. My question is, and I think it's great that we have the ability to do the exit reviews with staff stepping out. My question is, in the different areas of employment that your team sit in, is there a trend within there as to more people leaving one type of work as opposed to another?
Through the chair, I haven't actually done that analysis, but we could look at that and bring that as part of the risk assurance report, if that's okay.
Thank you.
Actually, is that needing to be recorded as an action? Or was just something that will happen? Thank you, you're doing it now. Thank you. Back to Chief Executive.
Then we've got the health, safety and wellbeing dashboard. Very positive to see the 5-star driver rating. Doing a lot of work in this area. The next section is submissions, and there is a table there. You can see there still is a very large number of submissions that we have the potential to take part in. And as I've said before, the ELT discuss these each week at our meetings to decide whether we've got capacity and also the priority around the submissions. Some of them are vital that we do submit, so we make the time to do that.
The one that I would just like more understanding is the proposed changes to modernise NZTA services. Was there detailed paper on that?
There was, yes.
I can circulate some. So your worship, there is a consultation material online. I've got a summary consultation document and I've got a full consultation document as well. That is one that I have started preparing a submission for.
And this was one we discussed at ELT. We do think it's a good initiative to look at having a digital driver license in particular, make it easy for people, because most people carry around a mobile phone these days and a lot of people don't carry wallets or anything anymore. So making it easier for people to actually have that and be recognised as a form of identity is really positive in our view.
So does that signify the proposed RDC action has changed from none to to active or submit?
Should have been submit, sorry.
Thank you. Any further?
So just then moving on to the next section.
Just before you do that, are there any further submissions that people absolutely think we should have a say in, whether there's no action, and bearing in mind capacity? Absolutely. But that was the one that jumped out at me. The submission has gone forward already, I think, in terms of the mandatory Whanganui Region speed reviews.
Not yet, your worship, that we've got sent out for elected member feedback and that will go in before the due date. I also know that the Taihape Community Board are looking at putting in a submission themselves as well.
Thank you. Happy to proceed.
Thank you. So just a regular update on Central District's water, which I think most of you are aware of the progress. Happy to take any further questions if there are any. I suppose the key thing to note there is Chris Dyberg formally takes his role next week, and so you will see other staff being employed under that organisation now once Chris has done some work on structure and what's required. So the chief executives are holding regular meetings about the teams that we currently have and agreeing principles for transfers, etc. So that work's carrying on, but Chris Dyberg will also look at his own structure for his organisation.
Thank you. Councillor Dalgety.
Just wondering where I would source, I'll find the memorandum of understanding with Ngā Tapuwaia Ho.
So it's in development at this stage.
Right.
Yes.
So
as-
are we able to be kept in the loop as to what's in that, please?
Yes, once we get to an agreed position on it, then it will go to the shareholder committee. So we're not at that stage yet. Yeah, it's still being drafted.
Thank you. Anything further on Central District's water?
So I'll just pass to Tiffany, just to give you an understanding of what's required for a hearing commissioner for the proposed plan change 3.
So I've just given some context in terms of where we're at in the process for proposed plan change 3. So we publicly notified in March and we've received 36 submissions with 1 late. And then we went out for further submissions in May, June, and we received 5 further submissions. So we're now at a point where we need to appoint a commissioner or a panel of commissioners to hear the submissions. And I've outlined kind of some reasonings for that in the report. And then I've just noted that they will need delegations, with you having 2 options being either being delegated to make recommendations or being delegated to make decisions. So happy to take any questions.
Yeah, so in terms of the option not to delegate the decision to the commissioners. So the process here would be that the commissioners provide recommendations back to council. Council would then have to go back to the commissioner to provide full basis of understanding of that. Would that not be considered as part of the first process, providing recommendations? I'm not quite sure of the absolute need to go back again to the commissioners. Can you explain that?
So there's 2 options in terms of delegations. You can either delegate the commissioner or panel of commissioners to make recommendations only, which means they will have to come back to council with recommendations on what they believe the appropriate approach is for submissions. Or you can delegate them to make decisions. So they wouldn't be coming back to council to make recommendations. They would make the decision and then it would come back to council just to make operative at the end of the process. The difference kind of is if they're just delegated to make recommendations, there's that extra step that they have to come back to council with the recommendations. If you have a different view, you can't make a different decision because you haven't heard the evidence. So you would have to go back to the commissioner with your questions, and then they would decide whether or not they would update their recommendations. So they're 2 options. One is you can give them delegation to make recommendations, or 2, you can just let them make a decision and understand that it's probably a more efficient process, but you wouldn't have the ability to question some of the recommendations that they might make.
This is quite an important decision in principle here as to what value you want as councillors to be part of this process. I would have to temper that with the training that is required to understand these processes is substantial. Take the question, Councillor Hero.
I think you've just answered my question because that's exactly what I was going to ask about the process So the paper says that none of the elected members, does that include yourself?
Correct. So I was qualified as a chair under the RMA process, but I've let that lapse because there are too many conflicts of interest and reputations around that. So qualification as a commissioner is an intense program. And to be honest, you also need to be working within this field routinely to understand it. There are a number of people that were qualified as commissioners that literally didn't do enough work and keep up to date with the changes in process. So previously, in 1991, it was after that. You could be an unqualified person and sit on a panel, but not be the chair. Nowadays, everybody has to be qualified to sit in the process.
Unless you have a special exemption, yeah.
But to be honest, I think that we should be moving and giving the delegated authority to make the decision to the commissioner. Because I don't think that we collectively have the skills around the table. But if you go to the second way, you at least be able to give an opinion and ask for an explanation around it. Councillor Wong.
By delegating the decision to the commissioners, would we be fulfilling our duties as governance of the council?
Would we be setting aside our responsibilities is what you're saying? Just remember that you've been through quite a process with regard to this up to this stage to be able to present the information and understanding to the decision makers and community. So you haven't absolved yourself from that process in that respect. Tiff, do you want to make any comment or in that reply to that? Councillor Wong.
I would agree in terms of we've been through a fairly robust process and you've got it to the point where it's now out in the public. The public are having their say. We don't have accreditation. We don't have councillors that are accredited to hear the submissions and the evidence. And so whilst it will come back to you at the end of the process to make operative, in terms of a commissioner, they will hear the evidence and their right as an accredited person. And they will make decisions that they think are appropriate within the context of the law and having heard all the evidence before them. Yeah.
Follow up and then we'll go to hear myself with a question, councillor.
Would the decision be appealable? Could they appeal? They could. Okay, fine, thank you. That's fine.
Councillor Hero.
Well, kind of on my thought is if anybody as a councillor was interested in going down the track of becoming, I don't know what the process is, to becoming a commissioner, is that something that is normally done in councils where you put anyone that's decided that they would like to do that to put that up? Could you do that?
In the past, what would happen if you wanted to go down that path? Probably you would have a discussion with myself, and that would be a discussion based on whether you were seeking council support for that process and therefore council funding. Anybody has the right independently to go down this process to become a commissioner. However, my advice now to somebody, unless you're actively involved in law or have a high degree of understanding of legal principles, it would be a very, very challenging process to go down. Either legal or planning background is really required.
Can I just make a comment on? So taking on board what the line of questioning that Councillor Wong
had talked about as to whether or not we as councillors could potentially not be doing what we're supposed to be doing. We're not even, well, I'll talk about myself. Well, even if I wanted to, I wouldn't even be in a space to be able to really put some real effort into understanding what's coming in front of me. I'm not a lawyer. But
I mean, the process is getting much, much harder to be able to go through. When I did my chairs training, there were a number of people who went through training who didn't qualify.
Mm.
And that's probably the bottom line. It's not rubber stamping exercise. You've done the work, therefore you're accredited. No, it's much more complex than that.
okay.
Can I ask a question, Trina, in terms of other councils handling this situation, what's been the normal status? Have you done any work around understanding that as to what decision the other councils have taken in this process?
I'm here to respond.
Yeah.
That's good. Yep. So it varies across councils, and effectively in the past I've worked with councillors I've helped them kind of work through the accreditation process when I was at Horowhenua District Council, and we had a hearing panel. So we had 3 or 4 councillors that were always accredited. It is quite a process to go through, but we had plan changes happening regularly. And so it was worthwhile effectively. We've got one plan change that we're working through the process, and then we're going to be working under a new environment and so we're moving from the RMA to a Planning Act and a Natural Environment Act, and it's a different process. In terms of what's out there currently, the panels or commissioner kind of vary. So generally for one commissioner, you would have an independent commissioner. It's not usually a councillor that's accredited that would hear by themselves a hearing of this nature. And so generally it varies. Some councils do independent only, some do a mixture of councillors and an independent person, because they generally will write the reports and produce the end product. And it really depends on how many hearings you're holding, and then the ability and interest of councillors to go through the accreditation process.
All right. For instance, Councillor Wong operates in these sorts of fields. Has been a judicial JP, and that's the understanding level of law that you sort of need to do to go into these processes. But it is extensive.
Can I comment on that? I'm not serving as judicial JP anymore because it's considered a conflict of interest being an elected member. And in the 3 years I haven't been on the bench, I am out of my depth now. It's changed that much, plus you're out of practice. So I take on board your comments about expertise, particularly. It's moves very quickly.
I mean, for me to go and get re-qualified, I wouldn't do it. You need to spend so much time, and you need to be actively working in the field routinely. I take on board your comments, Councillor. All right, I think what I'll do is go back to recommendation 1 first, that the report be received from the Chief Executive, looking for a mover to that. Councillor Charlin moving, Councillor Hill seconding. Those in favour, those against, carried. Recommendation 2, that council approves that either a sole independent commissioner or up to 3 independent commissioners be appointed to the hearing panel for the proposed change to 3, Irving Grove, and delegates the Chief Executive Mayor to determine those appointments.
Question?
Take the question.
Why is it so vague?
What do you mean it vague?
Between 1 person and 4.
3. 1 person and 3. Because first of all, having an even number could end up in a and a hung position.
So should we want all three perhaps?
Yeah, so you tend to have one or three. You certainly wouldn't want five because just the costs involved.
Thank you.
So effectively, this recommendation jumps to the position of delegating responsibility. In terms of recommendation 2 and 3 together.
And through you in terms of 1 versus 3, it's the opportunity for iwi to indicate whether they would like someone with an understanding of Te Ao Māori on the board, and if they do, then instead of just having 2, we would have to go to 3.
Because within the report is the requirement under the Local Government Act to go to iwi and consult with them to see whether somebody with the understanding and knowledge of the tikanga is appropriate in this instance. But then council has that decision, not the iwi. Look, I will move, Chair, recommendation that council approves that a sole independent commissioner is appointed to the hearing panel for proposed plan change 3.
I don't think it's an either or. I think that's what the team is trying to explain, that they'd rather have a sole independent or up to 3, depending on exactly what Tiffany just outlined.
With that delegation for us to come back to
Right.
yourself and Carol to confirm whether it's the 1 or 3.
That's why it
Okay.
wasn't
All right.
an option.
Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Wilson, happy to second. Any further questions? Look, I'll speak to this very briefly. This is the culmination of a huge amount of work that you have been involved with. It is not you absolving a responsibility. It is at the final stages of technically, you need to get this right. Because if you don't get it right, then you open for a legal process and jail. Any other speakers? Councillor Wilson.
Speaking in support, obviously, we've had 36 submissions to this proposal. We do have to get it right. It is not absolving our responsibility as governors. It is enhancing us as governors for doing the right thing to a significant piece of legislative work. And it is the absolute appropriate thing to do, as the skill set does not sit around the state. So that is actually making a proper governance decision, in my opinion.
I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Motion carried. Thank you. To speak to recommendation 3 in terms of explanation further.
I think we're clear on the difference between recommendation versus decision, and I stand by my recommendation to council that you delegate functions for the hearing commissioner or panel to make a decision.
I'll move that the council delegates to the independent hearings commissioner or hearings panel all necessary powers, duties and functions under RMA 1991 to consider, hear and deliberate and decide on all submissions and further submissions received on proposed plan change 3. Looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Ophir seconding. I think we've spent the time going through the technicalities of this process. Looking for any further speakers or questions? No, put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Thanks, Tiff, and thanks for the huge amount of work that's been done on this in this space.
Thank you.
The final section of my report that requires council decision is on the fees and charges, and we've just outlined there that there was an omission. So it was previously in there, it was deleted as an omission by error, and so we're asking that it be reinstated so that we can update our fees and charges. It's not a new charge.
So the question I'd have there, and I think I do know the answer, because it is a fees and charges, this doesn't upset our rate position.
No, it was already included in everything.
Councillor Wilson.
Certainly, thank you for bringing it to our attention. Did we just double check that we got everything else in there? Did it send us down a little bit of a path to go, let's have a double look? I would have hoped so.
Yeah, through you, your worship, we know exactly what happened,
Excellent.
and this was the only one.
Thank you.
And I didn't pick it up either, and I searched for these things, so I would have loved to have found it.
I think you and Katrina Roberts for not finding
Councillor
it.
Wilson.
Move on the basis of that, your worship.
Councillor Wilson moving, Councillor Buckendale second. Do you wish to speak to it?
I know your worship.
Vote those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. Moving on to item 10, the reports for decision. 10.1, simplifying local government Head Start pathway. Could first of all somebody move that the report be received? Thank you, Councillor Dalgety. Seconded, Councillor Hero. I think reception is easy. Put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Councillors, I just wish to advise you on some further conversations that have been had within this space over the last few days. This has been a moving feast. So you're well aware of the number of conversations that have been had between the councils within the Horizons region. And as of last night, I received further updates from Councillor Palmerston North what Councillor Palmerston North intending to say, and I've got to be very careful here because they've still got to go through their formal processes. But they are certainly valuing the relationship that they have with Central District's Water, which includes ourselves and Horowhenua, and they are valuing the relationship that they have with neighbouring councils, and they've outlined that to me. I think that they are unlikely, and I say think because it hasn't gone through their processes, that they're unlikely to sign the MOU that we are considering today. And I think they are working fairly closely in association with Horowhenua in that position. I've got to be very careful here that it's an indication from the mayor in association with the mayor of Horowhenua, but they have to go through their processes like anybody else. But they have expressed quite explicitly a desire to work and look at amalgamations in the future, or potential amalgamations in the future that could include us. Take any questions?
Thank you, your worship, for that. Acknowledging that in our recent workshops, of which we've had many on this subject, there was a conversation had during that workshop process about some sort of amalgamation or shared service or arrangement with our already existing partners of Local Water Done Well, being Palmerston North, Horowhenua and Rangitikei ourselves. So that was there was quite some discussion about that, councillors, I think you'll recall, at that workshop. But how would we record that? Because I see that's not in today's order paper. So is there a process that, because it seems to me as though what you've just highlighted to us is a conversation around our Three Water Partnership, and how that may develop, we would be wanting to signal that as also for our consideration to anything that we may submit an MOU or potentially something through to government for a further discussion, because it is a body of work that we have been considering. I'm not seeing it captured here individually.
Yeah, and I accept that. And this report was written prior to the conversations last night. I think you are absolutely right. I think that it would be wise of us to, if we make a decision not to be in Head Start, then we should acknowledge that we would like to continue conversations with our Central District Water partners and possibly associated councils. That's not to say that we'd be confirming a decision to amalgamate in that direction at all. It's to say that we would like to be part of those conversations in the future.
Subsequent to that, Your Worship, perhaps I could ask staff, how would we capture that? Because I think it's quite critical that we do capture our thought processes, because if we're not to submit to Fast Start and a further discussion's got to be had on that, I'd like to capture as much as we can for what may unfold in a future process. So how would we capture that? Is any thoughts around that?
Yes, if I could make a suggestion, Your Worship. Today you're considering the letter of intent and also the MOU, which the majority other councils are seeing the same letter and the same MOU. So if you want to put something different, I would recommend having like even an appendix to that letter to cover some of our flavour that we want to put in, and include that in that. That would go to the minister. And I just note that Ruapehu this morning have actually done exactly that. So they've adopted the letter of intent, the MOU, and they've added in a piece with their own, some of their own specific thoughts, and so it goes to the government. I'll just also make the point, Tararua yesterday also adopted the letter and the MOU.
Councillor Wong, question.
The MOU seems to me to be reasonably general and in the same direction as a lot of the feelings in the other councils, but has there been any criticism of the MOU by any of the councils or the mayors?
No, I think the MOU is quite general, and the reasons for that, because, and probably we need to deal with this in association with the recommendation too. I don't think that there is a single council within the Horizons region that has the knowledge and understanding or willingness to go through a Head Start position. But there is a willingness to work together where possible and to inform each other as to what's going on. So hence the MOU being written in this nature and being deliberately non-specific around exactly how this will happen. Yes.
But that would imply that all the councils on the MOU would support it, and is that the case?
Can you elaborate on that?
Well, if it's general and it's in the direction that most of the councils are feeling, which is that we can't put something like a Head Start, then by implication, all the councils would support the MOU, and I'm not sure if that is the case.
I don't think that all of the councils in the Horizons region will support the MOU.
But is there a reason for that?
Yeah,
But you can speculate about, sorry.
yeah, and there will be some councils that view a signed MOU by all of the Horizons region as too big a land area. And each council will have its own reasons and views in that regard.
Thank you.
Councillor Hero.
Sorry, can we just confirm what councils have, again, just
So
that have actually signed?
Ruapehu and potentially ourselves will sign, and Manawatu prepared to sign the
They
MOU.
have signed it.
That's all that we can comment on at the moment.
Yeah, there's still a number of councils in our region yet to have meetings. We're sort of right in the middle of it. So there's a number that are still different.
Councillor, might be a recommendation too, if could, Your Worship?
Yes. Saying we submit or do not submit.
Do not submit under the current proposal for government's Head Start pathway.
You're prepared to move that?
That
Councillor Hero,
Happy to second.
happy second, you wish to speak to it, and I'll speak to it as well. Councillor.
There's nothing simple about simplifying local government. Those two words shouldn't even end up in the same sentence. Because the more we've looked at this, the more difficult and complex it becomes. It is fraught with fish hooks that we are yet to understand. And I do not believe that we can meaningful submit a fast start proposal via the pathway based on the 5 recommendations that the government has set foot, and answer each one of those clearly and diligently, and justify that answer to any of the citizens and the ratepayers and the people that we represent with any degree of confidence. So we've got to just get this right. There's a huge amount of work yet to be done, but we are not in a position to submit under the Head Start pathway as it sits right now.
Eloquently put as second speaker. I don't need to say more because you've said exactly what I was going to say. Any other speakers? Councillor Delgado.
I'm in agreement with the recommendation, and thank you for those thoughts, Councillor Wilson. I agree.
Councillor Charland.
I actually agree too that.
I'm sorry, we've had 3 speakers for.
Oh, sorry.
But you've made your voice known. Anybody speaking against? Try to put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? How's that unanimous? Yes, it is.
Would you like that
Yeah,
recorded?
recorded as such, please. Recommendation 3, that the council authorises the mayor and chief executive to continue exploring local government reform models outside of the Head Start pathway. Representation to civil accountability, etc. Because it's authorising me, I won't move it. Looking for a mover 2. Councillor Wilson, Councillor O'Fee seconding. Councillor Wilson, do you wish to speak to it, or any other questions first?
I'll speak to it. Yeah, if there's no other questions, let's just make sure that, I think this is an absolutely natural progression of the earlier recommendation as agreed to unanimously by council. So it's just the next stage of where we need to get to try and unpick what simplifying local government is.
Any other speakers? I'll put it to the vote. Councillor.
I'd just like to say, I agree with you that it is a natural progression, but I'd also like to recognise and thank both your worship and the chief executive for the work that they have done in this area already.
Yeah, and by the way, it hasn't specifically said councillors. They appreciate absolutely the number of discussions, the sounding boards, and number of people have been involved in the space. It's not just the mayor and chief executive. I'm prepared to put this to a vote. Are you happy with that? Yeah. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 4, that council authorises His Worship the Mayor to communicate council's positions to the Minister of Local Government and Ministry of Cities, Environment, Regions and Transport. In other words, et al., outlining council's willingness to take an active role in local government reform and intent to work collaboratively with other councils. I will look for a mover to that. So Wilson, move it.
Actually, I think it was Councillor Charland.
Councillor Charland.
Yeah. But I've got a question.
Take a question, or I'll get a seconder first. Councillor Charland, Councillor Duckendale seconding. Take the question.
Would this be where the earlier conversation that I was having about our Central District Borders partner, would it fit within this recommendation, or does that need to sit separately?
Absolutely.
So would that need to be recognised in there somehow? I just want to make sure that we're capturing this.
I'm not sure I don't think you need to. I think if you agree, your worship, we'll take that as an action to include as an appendix to that letter.
Okay.
And I'll work with his worship to actually put that flavour into that.
I'm happy with that. I'm just keen to make sure it's recorded somewhere. I don't want to get it missed.
Thank you.
I take a similar view to Chief Executive, and we have discussed this.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Sharman, do you wish to speak to your motion?
No, I think it's just a natural progression from recommendation 4, so I'm happy to leave it at that.
Any other speakers? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. Recommendation 5. That authorises the Bush of the Mayor to finalise and sign a joint letter and or memorandum of understanding with other councils in Manawatu Wanganui region to the Minister of Local Government, noting council's willingness to take an active role to work collaboratively with other councils. Looking for a mover to that. Councillor Buckendale moving, looking for a seconder to that. This is the signing of the MOU. Thank you, Councillor Hero. Take any questions? No, Councillor Buckendale, do you wish to speak to it?
Only to say that it follows on naturally from the previous recommendations. We have to do it.
Question.
Take a question.
We are seeing to the Manawatu Wanganui region, but have we had any overtures from any council outside the region, and that perhaps should at least talk about?
There have been a number of decisions, number of discussions with every other council within our region that also includes overflow conversations from outside of our region. So, for instance, Tararua Council have spoken about the relationships either side of them. None of those outside of Tararua are saying that they want to be part of us, but we're aware of their position. Equally, Horowhenua and Kapiti, there have been a number of conversations around potential in that space. But for instance, Kapiti haven't reached out to the Rangitikei saying that they want to be part of an association with us. Wanganui have mentioned conversations around South Taranaki, but that hasn't progressed. Ruapehu, Taupo, and Waikato. So there's been wider conversations, but none of them have come to us specifically. Councillor Dean.
I just wonder if the word region should have a capital R, please, to indicate
Yeah.
specifically.
Yeah, that's
Sorry.
fine. I won't even take that as meaning and just ask for it to happen. Yeah. Any other speakers to this? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, those against, carried.
Excuse me, should get to that.
Thank you. Before we go into reports for information, that's the reports for decisions simplifying local government. But I just, we have taken a limited amount of time, but for those online, I want you to absolutely understand the hundreds, if not thousands of hours of discussion between mayors, chief executives, councillors, council, and they are going to continue. And what I think that you will find is when, as we're saying, we're not in head start position. We will be waiting on decisions from government around what a backstop provision actually means and whether that will include consultation with communities. And we would be arguing vociferously for that position. I just don't want people to think, well, and they race through this. It's been an exhaustive process and will continue. Thank you very much. Moving to item number 11, the reports for information, financial snapshot.
Good morning, everyone. Just while I'm waiting for Warren to join us, I just want to make a note on page 64, 1.2. So I just want to remind everyone that this is an interim report, for lack of a better word. This is the management reporting that we carry out as opposed to the formal annual report type reporting that will be going to Audit New Zealand in time for the October audit. So this is, we will present to you in September at the finance performance meeting, the draft annual report, which is much more aligned to how Audit New Zealand audit us. And whereas we report here to you against our annual report that has been revised to include carry forwards that has been authorised by council and any significant resolutions that's impacted on this year's, on the budget that we've been working through last year's now. So it's just explaining there is a difference. With that, I'm going to hand over to Warren and he'll also answer Councillor De Getty's question around page 73. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Leanne. Good morning, council. My pleasure to introduce to you the June snapshot, combination of 12 months of work. Where we are at today, and first off, actually, before I do, addressing your question, Councillor Dalgetty, in relation to the subsidies received from the Better Off Funding Initiative for the Taihape Town Hall. Because we are so far behind our projected capital spend, we have simply not received the amount of money we expected to receive as part of our planning round this year. So that's what that relates to.
Better Off Funding, is it? That Better Off
Yes,
Funding.
Better Off Funding.
So it's Better Off Funding. So we claim based on spend.
Yep.
So that 600K is still available to us as the project goes forward. It's not been wiped off.
Yes, correct.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Additional to that, I would make a comment and ask the reply whether my understanding is correct. So in terms of the Martin Pool, in terms of the financial year, we hadn't received the
Subsidy.
donation money
Yep.
from a member of the community. As of the other day, there was an email to the chief executive and to myself saying, you know, when do you want this transferred? There is no hold up in this process at all. It will happen. And literally they were reaching out saying the money's better in your account than ours.
We totally agree with, and we've gone back with just a couple of questions to manage that process, but it will be reflected in this year's set of accounts.
Thank you. Take any further questions around the reports? Councillor Wong.
Page 68. You have a very nice picture, graph, of the debt level without the Central District Water debt. And the same picture from the June finance performance report showed a $3.9 million negative debt, because that was before the annual plan.
Yep.
And so the difference between those two should be the capital expenditure for this after the annual plan, I take it. So that's $25.8 million that is on page 80. So why is it on page 68 including the water's capital expenditure in there when it's should be excluded?
Okay, so what I committed to through the chair, what I committed to doing after tabling the report last month which was a table as at our position in May for what we knew at the time. I committed to update that once we had the annual plan signed off. So what is in front of you now is a post position to include the effects of the annual plan that has been signed off, of which the capital that we are attributing to Three Waters next year, because what you're looking there on page 80 is the capital spend for 25-26, not 26-27. So the capital spend for next year for Three Waters that we associate with borrowing is around $12 million. And hence it moving from what was originally 47.9 million as it was in our report last month. That moves out to close to 60 million when we take into account the debt we'll borrow over the next 12 months. So that's why the debt level has raised since the last report to this one, because it's taking into account the borrowing we'll have to incur. Remembering that renewals and the capital are not funded through debt, they're funded through the depreciation recovered by way of rates. So it's just the external borrowing that we're reflecting over the next 12 months, and that revised number at 60 million total debt for Waters at the end of June next year. Does that cover it?
So we've got to build in this year's work.
Yeah.
Right.
So we're borrowing for Three Waters. Three Waters is still part of
Yes.
RDC this year that we're in, 26, 27. And that's what we had to reflect the movement of. But it's only for new or growth assets. Our renewables is always, or for the majority, will be funded through rates as part of depreciation. So we don't account for that.
And that renewals isn't on that capital expenditure.
No, because you're looking
That's-
at
that's
this
good.
year's report, not
Right,
next
I see,
year's.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're just closing off this year gone. So the 25, 26 financial year
See-
gets a bit messy when we start
It
to
does.
tread two
Oh.
years, but that's just the way it is.
Okay.
And thank you for this information. I spent a little bit of time with the finance team as well, going over this. What it does illustrate is the future position well, in terms of once we the exit of central district water kicks in and these loans are repaid. But in terms of the 25 million, that is debt. It also doesn't, you could remove some of the liquidity position that would still retain with bank money, etc. So, take any further questions?
Can I just check if there was any points that Warren was actually going to raise to?
Certainly, yeah.
The only other thing through the chair once again that I draw your attention to was just we had been reporting for essentially 11 months of the year that our operating surplus was actually in a surplus position relative to budget, but as we've sort of just covered off, we had it anticipated in June. We'd planned for the 2 million to be received for the pool in June, and of course, as Miranda just pointed out, we haven't got that yet, and it's only a timing issue. So that's why we've moved from where we were favourable to plan on an operating result up until the end of May to now being slightly adverse to that number. But as we talked about, it's purely a timing difference. And that by and large was the only other point that I was going to raise. Everything else has been addressed. Thank you.
Councillor Wilson.
Yeah, and I may have this wrong, but this number on 6.2 under the transfer Three Waters transfer, this 536, that seems to me to be a number that's been bouncing around for a wee bit. Yeah, and I just note officers still awaiting audit determination. Is there a concern or a problem there, or why is it?
Yep.
That number's been about for a wee while.
Yep, sorry, let me talk to that. So that number moves every month based on the level of work that council staff and external staff, employees are doing in relation to work we're doing on behalf of CDW. So each month we're building up what is going to be a reimbursement that CDW will make on transfer of all the assets at June next year. So that money is not just us expending it for their good and us never seeing it again. We'll actually be reimbursed that. What the comment pertaining to audit is about is that we've taken we tried to get an audit ruling on this months ago around whether we could disclose this as a receivable in the balance sheet as opposed to putting it against our expenses in the P&L. And we couldn't get an audit ruling out of them. So we've taken the conservative position to expense it for now. That way there's no shocks. It will be And if audit change their position and say, okay, you can put that in the balance sheet as a receivable for the annual accounts, that would improve our operating result by that 536K. It would move from expenses to actually a receivable on the balance sheet.
Okay, so I understand further from, I understand how the number's made up and I understand what the number is and the work that it's done. But you've just now clarified that you're actually expensing it now, so it may come back to us
Yes.
in a prior. So
Yes.
it's, I was just looking to make sure that we suddenly didn't get to a situation in a few months' time or a year's time, we go, oops, Houston, we've got a
No,
problem.
definitely not. No, in fact, we've taken the ultra conservative position to expense it up front.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Good.
Because originally we were recognising it in our balance sheet,
Yes.
but we've decided to flow it through the P&L, which just protects us.
Yeah.
It's a real safe option. It's not one that we both actually agree with, but if that's the way audit want us to do it, and we have to be consistent with all three councils.
Okay, thank you. Happy with that.
Would somebody like to so move the report, please? Councillor Dalgety, Chair of Finance, Councillor Beard seconding. Do you wish to speak to it?
Thank you.
I'll put it to vote. Those in favour? Those against? Thank you very much. Thank you to the finance team. Item number 12, from minutes from committees. I am hopeful that somebody wishes to receive these as a block. Would somebody like to do so? Councillor Sharlin, Councillor Beard. You wish to speak to it?
And not necessary.
Any questions? Vote those in favour, those against. Carried. Thank you. Item 13, the recommendations from committees.
Do you like me to sit with your worship?
Yes, please.
So this is a report with recommendations from our community committees, our Taihape Community Board, and also from our Community Grants Committee for carry forward of unspent funds. For the community committees and boards, it's the unspent funds from their small projects funds, and for the Community Grants Committee, it's the unspent funding from the event sponsorship and the community initiatives grants.
Can I ask you, well, let's move recommendation 1 first. This is receiving the report. Councillor Hero will move it, seconded. Councillor Baird, those in favour, those against, carried. My question would be, in terms of recommendation 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, if we are looking at the same principles, would it be an opportunity for us to move them as a block?
Yes, correct, your worship. If you wanted to apply the same principles and make one decision, you could do so.
On that basis, would somebody like to move? Councillor Wilson,
Happy to move.
you wishing to move as a block
Yes, as a block, yeah.
and approve or not approve?
To approve.
Looking for a seconder to that. Thank you, Councillor Hainsworth. Seconding, do you wish to speak to it?
Yeah, purely an operational matter that enables our finance team to tidy up some interviews and carry forward. So it's just a very simple administrative piece of work that enables our team to push on and get it sorted out. So makes it easy for everybody.
Any other speakers? Want to vote, those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you very much. 13.2. Recommendation for the Hunterville Community Committee. And you wish to take us through this?
Yeah.
Or is Petra doing it?
I can speak to it. We won't put Petra on the hot seat on our first council meeting. So this is a recommendation that's come to council from the Hunterville Community Committee around the certificate of fitness for the Hunterville swimming pool. Council officers are currently working on collating that information for the committee and have sought a few quotes. So the intent is to report back to the committee next week. We've got a report on their agenda, and Mr. Black will be at that meeting to provide any updates that we have at that time back to the committee. So the recommendations here for council is to just note that they've received the recommendation from the Hunterville Community Committee and note that action officers are taking actions on it.
Councillor Dalgety, do you wish to move or comment or question at this stage?
To
Actually, I was not at that community meeting. I was away on leave. Councillor McIntyre may want to comment, but I can I can comment that my understanding is their requests are in action.
No. I've got nothing further to add. It was straightforward meeting and no point in adding to that. Thank you.
Okay. Look, let's do this separately. Recommendation, let's receive the report. Councillor Dalgety wishing to receive, looking for a seconder to that. Councillor Field, sorry, delay. Put it to the vote, those in favour, those against. And recommendation 2, that council receives the recommendation and notes the actions to be taken by officers. Would somebody like to move that? Councillor Field moving, second to Councillor Buckendale. Any questions? I'll put it to the vote and hopefully this moves quickly. Put it to the vote, those in favour, those against, carried. Thank you very much. Item number 14, this is for council to move into public excluded for the reasons given. And would somebody like to so move? Councillor Leroy moving, Councillor Field seconding. You wish to speak to your motion? I'll put it to the vote. Those in favour, those against, carried. Before we close off, thank you to those online. And we move into public excluded.